Um, since human beings first crawled out of the caves and encountered others like themselves, the tribes have waged war against each other for reasons that are real, trivial, fictional, and nonsensical. Now, one can make the argument that it's our prime directive, but moreover, it can be argued that every institution devised by humans has been used to enslave other humans. The difference today is that social media has given everyone a voice to fight the power, but unfortunately, it's that little fearful voice inside our head saying burn it all down that people are using instead. Now, those who wish to wield power against everyone else have listened to our fears and are leveraging them against us. Now, thus, the more we yell, the more violent Armenia seems. Now, enter in Donald Trump. The former squatter continues to suck up all the air in the room because he's not only bombastic, but he's also a twit and a grifter with no moral center and a preternatural ability to focus on fear and use it as both currency and a cloak. Now, some of that cloak was stripped away in court this week in the E. Jean Carroll civil case. She successfully established Trump as the liar that he is, and she established him as a sexual, misogynistic bully. The jury in her case slapped Trump with $5 million in punitive damages that more than likely he'll never pay. And once again, the followers have been shown the emperor has no clothes. But as Rip Torn reminded us in the film Defending Your Life, being from Earth as you are and using as little of your brain as you do, your life has pretty much been devoted to dealing with that fear. Now thus Trump's faithful fearmongers likely will not abandon their master over the Carroll verdict, but his sycophants are already calling that part of the witch hunt and giving Trump his perpetual pass to embrace his darkest angels. Now it is fear of the world and fear of Trump and fear that you might be wrong and fear in general that drives his sycophants to their violent manic actions. That fear sits like a giant fog blocking the true happiness and enlightenment as we suffer through a world of so-called alpha males who are obsessed with their small penis envy. Because the Trump supporters, because they got small dicks, they're envious. And that brings us back to Donald Trump, who showed up for a Wednesday night appearance on a CNN town hall hosted by journalist Caitlin Collins, and he didn't wait more than a minute before he started lying. He told lies about January 6th, the 2020 election, classified documents, the border, and made misogynist comments while also calling a black police officer a thug. Now, Trump played before a hand-picked crowd of sycophants as Collins frantically tried to hold him accountable. Now, Trump was just himself, Trump. He still does not accept the fact that he lost in 2020. He continued to spread lies about voter fraud. He made disparaging comments about Carroll and continued to play to a crowd that was only too happy to cheer and applaud every misogynistic and racist comment and lie he made. Now, for some, it was a moment loaded with PTSD. Now, I, for one, had forgotten how happy life had been without having to face and push back against dozens of lies on any given fucking day. But the mania that is Trump is still there, and though he appears to have a lot of hard mouths under him since we last saw each other, or basically, yeah. But just in case you missed the point, Trump endorsed the U.S. government defaulting on its debt unless the Democrats cave on issues and cut spending. Then he said the Democrats would absolutely cave, which they will not. The funniest moment came during a commercial break when Ron DeSantis was seen in the commercial claiming that he wouldn't fucking back down. Most of the rest of the commercials were in-house promos for CNN shows. And it turns out that very few wanted to subsidize Trump's return to television as he talked about our country being destroyed, but he fails to mention that he's the one that destroyed the country. And Trump goes on to claim how great he was when he was exactly the opposite. He was a total fucking failure. As frustrating as it is to watch him on a national stage again, and as sure as I am that millions of people watching him are yelling at the television, Trump is just a symptom of our dysfunction that we're seeing in everyday life. Recent articles about the economy claim that the only thing keeping us from plunging into the abyss of a recession is the American consumer spending. And we're so well trained at spending, and that while economists claim we're on the brink of a recession, Americans continue their consumptive nature with a fury that hasn't let up just because we're suffering from inflation, or a loss of medical care, the shrinking or non-existence of our retirement funds, or the lack of health care, insurance, insane politics, climate change, doomsday advocates, religious fanatics, Trump sycophants, delusional politics from the far right, and the threat of annihilation from a stray asteroid. And man, we're fucking crushing it. We're a lean, mean, fighting capitalism machine. And now, against all fucking logic, we're embracing the competition that has led to an increasingly smaller number of larger companies determining how we spend our fucking lives and how we do. Now, And that's still not good enough for some members of the Republican Party. Speaker of the House Kevin McCarthy had met with President Biden at the White House on Tuesday. The discussion was about the debt ceiling. McCarthy wants to break the President Biden and make him curb social spending before McCarthy will agree to raise the debt ceiling, so that we won't default on the debts. Now, mind you, Republicans voted for the spending that they now blame Biden for. In essence, they want Biden to act like their parent so they won't spend again. But in an attempt to break Biden, they run the risk of breaking the country.
Criminal justice system.
Now, Trump, on the other hand, is happy to say that he'd welcome a default. Now, McCarthy is stuck too. Now, he has to play to the crazed far-right minority that elevated him to his leadership role, or that he could face losing it if one single member of his party challenges him. Now, hence his public stance of blaming Biden for the potential debt ceiling crisis that the Republicans caused. The entire world economy and every person on the planet would suffer because of the likes of George Santos, Marjorie Taylor Greene, and the other reprobates who would hold McCarthy hostage. A fact that Biden acknowledged on Tuesday. I don't know how much leeway Kevin McCarthy thinks he has in light of the fact, and I'm not being a wise guy when I say it took 15 votes for him to acquire that speakership. And apparently he had to make some serious concessions to get it from the most extreme elements of his party. So I don't know, Biden explained. But what President Biden and those who understand is on this issue is that they do know is that if anything could throw the world into an economic depression, it would be if the most powerful country on the planet defaulted on its debt ceiling. It would be like finding out your rich uncle who has propped up everybody else in the family has gone broke and needs your help. I swear that this is not a Donald Trump reference. Now, the only two new issues I can think of that I can think of when it comes to rivaling the debt ceiling is the importance in the war in Ukraine, or a stray asteroid wiping out the planet. But Biden thinks it's the debt ceiling. Obviously, this is the single most important thing that's on the agenda, he told reporters at the White House last Tuesday. Now, look across the country would explain why. Now, the rural part of America is dying. Some homes are so freshly abandoned in rural America that the shattered window panes are still hanging like glass hangs over the openings in the hole in the wall that they used to cover up. Now, spend the night in Dodge City, then take a drive from western Kansas through most of New Mexico and parts of Arizona along the old Cimarron Trail. A road trip through that area will show you hundreds of abandoned homes. Hundreds of rusted trucks, cars, bicycles, and school buses, tiny communities with scarce to non-existent services, from groceries to healthcare. Now, Laguna, New Mexico was founded back in 1699, and it has a median income that a fast food worker would find insulting. Vast parts of rural America look tired, abandoned, and quiet, and painfully so. Now, this was the essence of the Trump country: empty, vaguely dangerous by night, and a stone-cold drag by day. They want better, and they deserve better, but they're not really trying to. The one sliver of hope in a drive-through in these areas is the ubiquitous sight of workers rebuilding the infrastructure. Love him or hate him, Joe Biden may be remembered to posterity in a favorable manner for signing the Infrastructure Act, but many in Trumplandia don't give Biden credit for passing that infrastructure plan, and Trump couldn't even get an infrastructure plan passed. Now, a refusal to raise the debt ceiling could be the trigger that finally destroys what's left of the shrinking rural culture in our country. It is no coincidence that this is where Trump's most fervent sycophants live. Now, here's the root of your histrionics, and here's your frenzy. It is not unexpected. It is the rage against the dying of the light, sponsored and created by the very people you voted into office to save your way of life. Now, speaking of things not unexpected, on Tuesday, news broke that George Santos was charged with federal crimes. On Wednesday morning, we found out that there are 13 federal charges against the New York Republican. And all told, the craven liar and loyal Trump sycophant is charged with 7 counts of wire fraud, 3 counts of money laundering, 1 count of theft of public funds, 2 counts of making materially false statements to the House of Representatives, and a partridge in a pear tree. It is serendipitous that Trump himself, charged with a felony, had a civil jury rule against him the day it was announced Santos would face charges. And it pretends greater woes for Trump because Santos is a liar and a cheat like Trump, but he's nowhere near as accomplished as Trump is at lying. And like Trump, Santos is a millstone around the GOP's collective neck. Of course, he's going to run for re-election. And meanwhile, Speaker Kevin McCarthy, who once said he wished Santos had more power than Biden, sang a different tune Wednesday evening. He said he wouldn't support Santos for re-election, and if the Ethics Committee found he had broken the law, he would ask for Santos to resign from Congress. And this is one millstone McCarthy may yet remove from the body politic, and the mania will continue. Now, in Santos' case, you've got to give it to him. He's berserk. He's batshit nuts. He's delusional, rabid, and encumbered by ethics, morality, or human decency. But he and Donald Trump are consistent. And that consistency drives the paranoia and the frenzied behavior. And we saw that again Wednesday night with Donald Trump on CNN, as the ancient mariners warned us, beware. Here there will be dragons. Trump says he would pardon a large portion of the January 6th Klan rioters, and claims that the Klan insurrection was a march that was done by people with a lot of love in their heart. No, that was the exact opposite. And what will it take for Kevin McCarthy and what's left of the GOP to finally push themselves away from Trump? And the damage is done. There's very little left of that party anyway. But Trump, of course, has done much more than Santos in ruining the Republican Party. As Dahlia Lithwick and Ronald Anderson pointed out in Slate last week, the former squatter was found liable for a horrific sexual assault, and his dishonesty has become so commonplace that both his sycophants and opponents mostly shrug when yet another of his statements turns out to be wholly untethered from the truth. No. And yet, the lesson from the frenzy this week was clear. The former squatter told a blatant lie and was finally found accountable in court. And this does not bode well. And this does not bode well for those who follow that warped dragon. And yet he still has not learned his lesson. He still lies continuously. He loves to fight, ignores the facts. He plays to the crowd who swallows his lies, and he sits in judgment preaching the same fear and the same hatred. And too bad the evangelical Christians who wrap themselves around Donald Trump and his minions like McCarthy and Santos forgot their book of Hosea. For they sow the wind, and they shall reap the whirlwind. And like I said before, if you're a Christian, you cannot support Trump and be a Christian at the same time. So if you like the video, you can give the video a like and subscribe to my channel, RBW King. You can also hit the notification bell so that you'll be notified when the new video comes out. You can also leave a comment, let me know what you think. And if you want to support my work even further, you can donate to my Patreon link, which you can find in the About section of YouTube. And for just a little as a few bucks a video or a month, your donation can help go a long way. And thanks for listening.